starting at 1 p.m.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Call to order. I believe we have all councilors with the exception of Councilor Caprara. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Let's see if we're still on that. At this time, I'll open it up for public comment. Is anybody that would like to come up to the podium? All right, we'll go ahead and get started with item 58. We'll open the public hearing at 6:02 for the Augusta West Campground Special Entertainment Permit application. Do you have any representation in the audience? Chief Ferland, do you have any concerns?
I have none.
Okay.
He's out on the boat, he's out on the boat right now doing the rescue.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to make a motion to, oh, I'm
We're
sorry.
good?
I have a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Didn't we give Anthony authorization to make the decisions on these? Unless he
No,
had any-
that was regarding liquor and cannabis licenses, but not special entertainment permits.
Okay, all right.
We can.
Yeah, we're good. Somebody make a motion.
I'm gonna close the public hearing at 6:02. All right, we'll move on to item 59, consideration of special entertainment permit application for Augusta West Campground.
I move to approve a special entertainment permit for Augusta West Campground.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstains? All right, moving on to item 60, consideration of transient seller permit application from Rebel Dogs.
Hey, Linda.
Hello. Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of the party can start.
Is there a suggested motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transient seller's permit for Rebel Dogs.
Second.
Right, is all in favor? All are in favor? Item 61, discussion and consideration of a funding request from Winthrop Cares. We have
Thank you. My name is Sharon Doyen. Tonight I'm here representing the Winthrop range and the program Winthrop Cares. For a lot of you who are new here, you probably don't even know what Winthrop Cares is. If you'd like to pass around these booklets, this is a group of community people, myself and others. Mary Richards started this program in the early 2000s when Winthrop had a lot of suicides, issues. I'm sure Shannon's gonna remember because she graduated about the same time as my daughter. So this is a community group dedicated to the well-being of the youth in the town. It's been in existence for about 20 plus years. And we've addressed suicide prevention, underage drinking, making healthy life choices. And we present every year the new kindergarten kids with backpacks full of healthy items, toothpaste, toothbrushes, wellness brochures, jump ropes, tissues, you name it. We follow that through graduation, where at graduation we offer the graduates words of wisdom from the Winthrop community. We offer them the Porch Light program. It costs a lot of money to have these things printed. Back in the early 2000s, there was a line item in the budget where the town of Winthrop would give us $500 per year to help with this program. We try to do fundraisers throughout the year. We're going to try to collaborate with some other Winthrop organizations because and we're also collaborating with the teachers right now to see what else we can do under the program Winthrop Cares. So I'm here tonight to see, I can't tell you, I just took this over this year. I don't know how or when or what, maybe, I don't know if the town manager was able to look into it, but several years ago, the $500 per year stopped, the funding stopped. I'm here tonight to see if we can get that reinvented and start having $500 to help towards printing costs and everything else that we do for these kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, you have a question?
Yes, not so much for you necessarily, I just, one thing, I was on Winthrop Unites when we did this back in 2005, I wanna say. And the Porch Light program, if I recall, had a fund within the town, that was basically to help provide for, I believe it was like one free visit per session or something like that. Linda, do you recall any?
Yeah, I don't know, but is there money in the one of those little funds that
It
are?
wasn't Patrice,
Patrice was doing it.
Yeah.
And so there was money in a town account dedicated at least to the porch light side.
Yeah, I remember that,
So that might be something. to look into.
Yeah, our finance assistant has searched for that money, hasn't found it yet. Of course, our finance director's out of pocket right now, so
Okay.
hopefully we can, if there are funds available, we'll try to find it.
there were a lot of little accounts like that, and that was, I think, one of them.
Okay.
I'll just say I got a printout last year in the fall of '23, when I turned in a receipt, and it had over $2,700 in it. Today, 2 weeks ago, when I brought another receipt to get reimbursed, it only had $166. So that concerned me a lot, because that money got that, and I actually I got a printout, and I see where the line item was, and so I'm hoping that I can get with Linda and figure out what they did with that money, because it was there last fall and now it's not there anymore.
Yeah, but we asked that a lot of those accounts be moved under the school,
Okay,
I think.
Yeah, that would
You're
make
right.
sense.
We moved
Exactly.
a lot of those, because they were just all over the place.
okay,
I
yeah.
think, as I recall, I think that's what we did, because people were opening up accounts under their
That was
own,
just last year, didn't it?
yeah, I think it was a year before, maybe.
Yeah, I remember, I was on the council.
But it was, they kept opening up those accounts and they were kind of all over the place, so I think,
There
I
were
would
two
check
different
with them.
codes on the two different sheets. One had a carryover code of like $166, and then the other one had a different code. And those are what I'm getting copies to the town, so they can figure out what happened to those codes and what happened to that money, because yeah, I mean, that 166 that they told me I had left won't even cover the printing of these new books for the 24 graduates.
When do you need that?
Well, I mean, it came out in the Winthrop Chamber of Commerce, the newsletter came out today on people trying to get their stories or their words of wisdom in for the 24 book for the graduates. So I mean, sooner rather than later, because it's gonna go to printing, obviously, before the graduates graduate. They get that on their graduation day.
You remember that?
how much do those books, and how many do you print, and how much do they
Well,
cost?
last year we printed 60, and Copies Etc. Day was a great deal, and I believe it was $120. But we are completely out of the porch light brochures, so this year I gotta have those printed as well.
Okay, yeah, I would, if we can't, on our end, we have nobody that knows where those are now at the
Well, I
school
mean,
end.
no, so I think you've given us a good lead to follow, and so I'll just check with the
Yeah, the
superintendent's
school should
office
know
tomorrow
right
to
now.
see if
Okay.
they have that
Okay, yeah,
in their accounts.
And if,
Okay.
and if not, Anthony, you do have the ability to provide funding up to a certain level without coming to us, right?
Yes, so depending, I mean, $100 or whatever it is, not an issue. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's
how
not an
much would be involved in printing the brochure. So yeah, so we could approve that, but my understanding was you were seeking to reinstate the $500 line item in the fiscal year 2025 budget. Is that correct?
That is correct, but in the meantime, for doing that, we've somehow lost money that we just gotta find.
Okay,
because-
well, we're dealing with two separate issues.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
So we'll search for those funds, if it's that small amount of money, I mean, we could go ahead
Just make sure they don't miss.
and
the
pay for
deadline.
that. And then, but then you still have before you, whether or not you want to add this line item into the.
is this 500 for those brochures?
We're reaching out to the teachers, and we're gonna reach out to other people. We're gonna try to get this organization to do more than it has in the past, just to help the youth through in Winthrop. So it's going to go towards, right now I have a questionnaire before the teachers. What can we do to hold, what kind of programs can we hold? We wanna maybe have a big science fair that the school can't fund because of the budget. So maybe the Winthrop Grange will sponsor a science fair for kids, maybe a robotics contest. I mean, we've got all kinds of great ideas, but we have to have money. And I just think trying to reinstate the $500 is a good start.
Can I add to this? I'm with the Winthrop Grange. We make backpacks, we buy cloth and make backpacks for the kindergarten teachers from scratch. And we buy all the stuff that goes into the backpacks, which is crayons, jump ropes, pamphlets, all those things. This is where that $500 would be.
Okay, and I was just gonna, talking about the porch light program, because I'm trying to recall, and I could try to dig through some old emails, but, so the program's funded up to $500 per eligible person, which I believe is anyone that graduated within a certain time frame, per year by the town of Winthrop. The cost of the services, meaning, usually some type of mental health or psychological, service, will be billed directly to the town without identifying who uses the services. In lieu of health insurance, if health insurance, it covers the copay. The 3 participating agencies are committed, so that's on the back. Do we still have, active contact and make sure that this is actually something that's still?
Yes, you're probably right. See, again, Mary Richards, I was hoping she could come because she was one of the founders of this. That's probably what the $500 initially was going to, was that porch light program. And then the rest of it we earned through fundraisers. But it stopped. And so if we're gonna continue, if I get those brochures printed, I've gotta be sure that the town's on board for at least that $500 commitment, or however we do it. That part, I truthfully don't know what they were putting that $500 towards back in the early 2000s, I'm not sure.
I think it's different.
But you're probably right, that's probably what it was
There,
for.
$500 per student.
Per eligible person. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
paid for by
So
the
I,
town.
there was an account. At some point, when we first started it, there was an account set aside with money in it. It was in the thousands that I can recall. I think maybe we should table this till we can figure out,
Yeah,
where to go and what to do with it, but I do think it's obviously still a worthwhile program. And in the meantime, Anthony could work with you in making sure that you can still get access to materials. That would be, so I would make a motion to table,
61.
second.
item 61.
Well, do you folks want to consider the request for $500 in next year's budget?
I think we've gotta look at, I think that's part of the budget discussion, at least for me it is. Because there's all
I
these.
think I'd like to determine whether something's already still being put into there, really, I'd like to
Yeah,
know what the
I mean,
count is, and what's being added.
Probably
to
the
take
school
more.
board, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's where I think,
That's my
we're
guess.
just doubling up.
But we gotta find out.
A while back, didn't we have a list of people that were asking us for donations?
Yes, we
And we
did.
made decisions.
That's what I'm saying, is I think we need
And
to,
Porch Light apparently wasn't on it.
It used to be run by the town, so I don't really know.
I don't know, I'm just saying, we had a list that wasn't on it, that's what we had for donations.
Are we looking at Porch Light and Winthrop Care as 2 separate entities?
They were one under Winthrop Unites, but
Winthrop
I,
Care started the porch light program.
yeah, it was Winthrop Unites.
It was Patrice, I believe.
I wanna find out exactly how much is in there first.
So are you making a motion to table item
Yes.
61?
Yes.
Second.
I seconded it.
Okay, all in favor to table item 61?
We'll get to the bottom of it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right, thank you very much. While you're here, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Is that the email that I received from the Chamber of Commerce this morning with the deadline of May 7th for the submissions?
Yeah, we moved it to the 15th.
Okay,
So any of you folks want to put anything in the book, I've got another week or so.
all right, May 15th?
May 15th.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item 62, discussion and consideration of the updated comprehensive plan. And last week we did go over some of the last meeting, we did have a discussion of it. And so I believe we have made some updates in the last week with the comprehensive planning committee. And is there any other discussion?
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
I think that it's time to put on.
So, one of the things very capable executive assistant reminded me of after it did come out, is that there is a process under state law for approving comp plans, and it does require a posting of the comp plan with 30 days notice of a public hearing. And so what I might propose is, if everyone's comfortable with it, we go ahead and we post it, and then we have that public hearing on June the 17th. And following that public hearing, unless you hear some game-changing input, then you could consider approval of it at that point. And then at that point, we would submit it to the state for its approval.
What day are you gonna do that?
June 17th.
Do you want us to add that to item 62?
I don't know that that's really necessary. I mean, if there's consensus among the council, I don't know that a motion is necessary.
I'm good.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to approve the updates as they're
Now, the
presented.
comprehensive planning committee is in the audience. Do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, okay, I'll make a motion to approve the update to the town of Winthrop's comprehensive plan as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion. I'd just like to make a comment that there's been a lot of ups and downs and go rounds, but in the end, everybody came together, did a lot of hard work, and that's why we're here today. And thank you very much.
All in
I
favor?
mean, wait,
More discussion?
yeah. So if this is approved the way it is, then I guess the question becomes is what we had talked about with the development around what where the sewer can reach to, the sewer and water, that goes away, and then it's adopted the town-wide one, correct?
Well, we can do it either way, as I understood it, right? We can leave it as is, where it follows a sewer, or we
But
can,
the way you're adopting it right now, it's my understanding that this goes town-wide, right?
Well, wait a second. So we're talking about, I think,
This is the update.
two different things.
Right.
This is not the
So-
comp plan. This is the updates.
Yes, so, okay.
This is the approval,
So, okay, hear me out. So I think, Councilwoman Caprera, what you're thinking about is when we adopted the LD 2003,
right,
we picked the skinniest portion that we could in order to, an overlay for growth. This, the designated growth area, does reach into and tries to bridge the gap between portions that are already designated as growth areas that are separated by pockets of zoning that is rural. So for instance, and help me out here, Pat, if I stumble on this, but for instance, there's a property just off of 202 that everyone's familiar with, where there's been talk about development, but currently it's zoned for rural development. So if we put that into the designated growth area, that may be impetus for the planning board then to consider some rezoning of that would allow for more dense residential development. Did I get that right, Pat? Okay, good. So what this is trying to do is just bridge the gap. That does not mean that we would have multi-unit housing in all of these areas, but it just provides, and some of this larger designated growth area is currently rural in nature, but it's already been developed as residential neighborhoods. And so part of it is, let's bridge the gap, and part of it is simply recognizing what has already occurred in our community. But keep in mind, this is not regulatory in nature. It does provide some guidance for the planning board to make some considerations of some changes that they may want to consider in our zoning ordinance, but this is just recommendations on things for them to consider.
So I kind of thought that's kind of what we discussed last time, but you just mentioned that last little sentence. The planning board gives them some guidance, but if they propose something new for a zoning ordinance, it would come before us.
That's correct.
Before that would be approved anyway.
That's correct. You are the final say when it comes to
Still.
changes in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. But yeah, it's just a little fail-safe. If we're uncomfortable with some of that, we can at least have a say before that took place.
okay.
I do have one other question too, to bring up. I just sent it to each of the counselors, just the overview of the vision that was stated in the comprehensive plan. Basically, there were 3 that were originally proposed, and I don't know if we ever actually came to an agreement on one, but there were 3, and I just sent it, I don't know if you received it. Winthrop will strive to sustainably provide a healthy mix of choices for living, learning, working, and planning in a community that embraces people, fully bringing their genuine selves. Winthrop will pursue all of this with an eye toward preserving a unique sense of place created by the town's rural flavor, its inviting village, and its elemental natural beauty. Or Winthrop, a thriving, inviting town with a prosperous economy and an active, diverse, involved community, striving to sustainably provide, promote, and support local employment opportunities, varied and affordable housing, a quality public education, and valued recreational opportunities while stewarding and preserving its historical, cultural, and natural resources, offering an incredible place to live, work, and play. And finally, Winthrop is a vibrant, inviting town with a rich history and diverse population which strives to support its local businesses, schools, housing, and recreation while preserving its culture, natural resources, and history. A wonderful place to live, work, and play.
I like the last one.
I like the last one.
Look, yeah. No, I listened to that. Thanks.
I like finally.
The last one, any other?
Oh, Andy, you're great.
Oh, yeah.
So Linda,
It's been
Mark that
happening,
down as
Write that
it's
down.
been happening all too often lately.
scaring me.
that was one other note that,
I like
just
that
going through the revisions.
Yeah,
It's short and
We're still
sweet.
on
short and sweet.
Yes, we're still on a vote as well, but before we go on that, just discussions for making sure.
But
That's fine, maybe.
And it's kind of like I said, we flogged this thing and we mixed the words and changed the words. I mean, it's time to just
Okay.
see this through.
All right, thank you. So we did make some revisions, and so for the vision, we'll go with the last one, and we'll get that updated for the presentation. Thank you very much to the Comprehensive Planning Committee and to the council. So there was a motion and a second. All in favor to update the town's comprehensive plan? All are in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 44, discussion and consideration of supporting the Zisk House application for state licensure as a residential treatment program, tabled from the April 1st, 2024 agenda. And I do believe we do have some members of the House are here to answer any questions. We did receive some additional information from Dawn, our planner. Dawn Emerson is also here with us as well. But we just received some additional information this morning. I believe it was 11 documents, one of which was a significant amount of information. And I believe that there was a request to table to review. Is there any discussion from the council?
I think we should
I have
table.
questions.
Okay, you have some, and we also have representation. We have Lisa Nashawati here, as the representative for the Zisk House.
And Ronald Smith.
And Ronald Smith is the administrator. Thank you. Go ahead.
Me first?
Mhm.
Okay, just recently, I heard that, you were also, acting as a halfway house.
Is that one of the?
No, so we cannot operate as, oh, sorry. We can't operate as a halfway house level of care, until licensed. So right now, this house is operating as a certified level 3 recovery residence, certified by the Maine Association of Recovery Residences.
Okay, so if people, are in jail and they're let out, can they be let out on the condition they attend your home at this time?
Yeah, it's case by case.
Okay.
Sometimes they're determined to be able to drop down into just a sober living, non-clinical treatment environment. But a lot of times they are stipulated to treatment upon.
Okay, can you tell us at what point you informed this council that that was the case? That people would be permitted to come directly from incarceration to your home?
I don't think I was directly asked that, and I didn't assume it would be problematic.
I need to tell you that at this point,
I asked.
and when was that?
Last. Yeah, you
Meeting
did
you were
ask
not, yeah, it was either the last meeting, I also brought it up when Ben was here. And, but I had talked about it in the frame of care or follow-up as the residential treatment, knowing that a lot do leave county jail and get admitted into a program. And they said yes. I didn't know about prior to that being non-treatment, but they did say that to me when I asked them.
It just feels to me like that aspect of this program has been not advertised, and it's been kept.
Can we ask Paul, Chief Berlin?
Sure.
Were you aware of that? They were taking direct admits potentially from, or direct releases from, like, Kennebec County? No, okay.
Okay, so having failed either perform the police chief.
I think it's important to note, admission process to come in. Every single person who calls to admit to this program is very heavily screened. Zisk House is only accepting, men who are looking to transition into a therapeutic community, which is a really highly structured environment, and it's not the easier, softer route. So most individuals that are coming into Zisk House are the ones that are showing, you know, there is such a need for this resource that the good thing about that is, you know, we are going to be taking, you know, men who are really committed to changing their lives, and showing and exercising that willingness on the front end is non-negotiable as far as whether or not they're accepted. You know, standards for behavior are really, really high in a therapeutic community. For them to remain in the house, they have to, you know, show everyone the same kindness and respect they're shown. They have to, you know, bring the practical application of all of their recovery principles into their day-to-day life. It is not housing. It is not, you know, a shelter. It's a highly structured treatment program.
Okay, so, pardon my failing memory, that Aaron talked about it before, but apparently the police chief was never informed. And, I think that, you've been a little disingenuous and you've lost my trust. And if you recall, a couple of meetings back, I spoke up in favor of supporting this, and you have lost my trust.
I'm sorry to hear that. I was not under the impression that we were supposed to be directly contacting the chief of police. We followed all of the regulations in the, you know, the regulations for certifying and licensing substance abuse agencies. DHHS has helped us every step of the way, ensuring that we follow the proper procedures and protocols. As I've said, I've licensed 7 of these facilities. Never once has it been a part of the process to directly notify the chief of police. If I was made aware that that was something that was needed for Winthrop, I would have 100% taken care of that.
Go ahead.
I just got a ton of information to read today,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
I really need time to review it.
okay.
So, I don't have many questions to ask because I haven't had a chance to review all that was laid out in front of me today because of work and all the other commitments I had. So I'd like to have a chance to review what you guys just submitted.
Okay.
So for me, I want to table this item, let other councilors just say,
I
but right now, I'm thinking I'd like to table it, but I just want to let you know where I'm standing on this.
I do want to very briefly point out that all of that document that you received was just additional reading material on what a therapeutic community is, what the NAR standards are. I was
Yeah.
asked the only question that we had left to answer by the zoning committee was, what are the services being provided?
Yeah,
It consists of 2 paragraphs in that email. The other stuff is just so that you can get familiar with.
and I remember our last meeting, I really want to understand, because you're offering for men and women, and I really want to understand all your guys, you proposed it the last time, it was men and women, and I really,
The
really.
women were gonna be upstairs.
Upstairs, and I'm really trying to get an understanding of all your guidelines and rules and regulations around this, because before I say yes to something,
Yeah.
I want to understand it, and right now, I don't understand it. So that's where I'm standing on this.
I'm sorry if that also posed any confusion. We are only being licensed for men at this time. If they do end up finishing up that 3rd floor, that requires a whole new site inspection, you can't just change and decide to accept women one day, without going through the same process we're going through right now with you. So that's something that they plan to hopefully implement down the road. I don't even think it's a decision or a definitive that's been made. It was just something that was discussed, because there is an entirely separate section of the treatment center that allows for a separate staff office, completely separate quarters, to have women be allowed down the line. But as I said before, that would require an entirely new certificate of occupancy, a whole new.
And I was unaware of that as well, so
Yeah.
it was presented to us that you were going to that next level.
Okay,
So-
I apologize.
I'll just, so there was actually a meeting prior to this that you were not here, so I think that may have been some of the
Yeah.
confusion. But I'll just say, you know, I went over the policies, which I know is what you were brought on for, and I completely appreciate the addition and inclusion of all the recommendations, as far as I could tell,
Yeah,
that we had, including making sure that, you know, any type of events would be notified, you know, the town, so we could really get a good, you know, good open line of communication. So I do appreciate that very much. I do think, in doing, in the planning side of things for Dawn, I think that's kind of a separate issue than, you know, the letter, just in the fact that there may be discrepancies in what the initial approval was for based on occupancy and the number. I believe there is a difference there that I have uncovered, so that may just be a technical thing that might require additional stuff, so I think that's what we're waiting on. So I do support the motion on the table, but I do appreciate everything that you guys have done, including the policies.
our occupancy number has been, set and determined to be, 45, by DHHS and the State Fire Marshal's Office. So that's the number. I don't think it would change unless, you know, those areas of the facility were finished, sprinkled.
That's the number of beds.
Yes, correct. I do just wanna say, I thought maybe I misunderstood the last time we all met here, that, you know, we were waiting on a determination from Dawn, which I understand her needing to look over, what services will be provided, and that small section of the email, which, I know she said she could review and submit to you tomorrow. We made it very clear that the state, asked for a 60-day deadline, to get this done. And I thought that there was an understanding, that, you know, this was something that was time sensitive. So, I know that you guys have a meeting on Wednesday. I'm trying to gauge because
You don't want to start over.
you have to start all over again, and, it's very important for us to know when the council decides if they are or are not going to, approve of this, so that we know what direction we have to go with that.
I have a question. You just said something that I wanted to expand upon. You said that there is, right now it's licensed for 45 beds.
We are not licensed,
I mean, not licensed,
Yeah.
you have 45 potential beds there.
we are looking to be licensed
Yes.
for 45.
Now, you said that if you upgrade the sprinkler system, there's potential for more than 45 beds?
There's an entire wing of the facility that's been boarded off and not in use. So in order to be not usable by state standards, when it was the prior facility, I think it was a nursing home, if the stairway to go up the stairs, there is a complete wall there. So that part is not even accessible if you tried for fire safety reasons, because they didn't put the money into ensuring that all the fire systems were in that area. So
Right.
that is not intended to be used at this time, and we're not
At
asking
this
for it to
time,
be
but
licensed.
potentially there's potential for even more.
If the council
Okay.
decides and we go through this process again, absolutely.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Does that require another letter from us if you change?
Correct, yep, that would require a change in occupancy, which we would need to come through the same avenues with which we did to get our initial provisional license passed by obtaining this last piece, which is the letter, from the municipal department.
So regarding meeting a 60-day deadline, I think that a lot of the discrepancies and a lot of the questions that we have up here are getting brought up due to the fact that we have heard quite a few different bits and pieces of information that are conflicting. The number of occupants, the fact that women are gonna be there, I mean, that was very blatantly part of the plan at the last meeting. The fact that we just got the rest of the information first thing this morning. but when we've had a month to get it done, I mean, it
I was
is,
asked for that, I was emailed for that, a week ago. So I was emailed that question a week ago. I was under the impression that I had submitted everything that was needed. I wasn't expecting a follow-up email, so I was not looking for it. I came across it when I knew I was coming here today to ensure that I reviewed and knew everything that we were going to be going over, and I stumbled across that email that I got a week ago. And I did, I responded to it, I stayed up last night, I typed up the complaint, the response, and sent it out at 3 o'clock this morning.
I just think that I think myself included would be, very interested in having some time to review all this information and before making a decision.
So a quick question, listening, because again, the more I'll read, the more I'll probably have more questions, but just currently right now, what is your occupancy level? Well, how many people, residents do you have living there today?
Right now, we don't have any clients, we're not licensed, but by MAR standards, you are
Yeah.
certified for how many with MAR? 48 with MAR.
48 with MAR, but how many are there now with, under MAR?
35.
You have 35, and with that, how many are collecting general assistance from the town of Winthrop? 6. How many are, so with all that successful rate, sounds like it's a fairly decent rate, are people getting employed, doing certain things, so they kind of can progress through this?
Yeah.
So you've been here for how many months now? Since this December, so 5 months? So starting out, how many people you had to move through this process that come in doing well and have been able to exit into a next level treatment or headed out? What's your percentage, your discharge thing?
No, I know, but what is your percent as far as what you would consider to be a successful
Yeah.
discharge from sober living? It's hard to determine also because there's only been.
I know it's a short time, I'm just trying to gauge.
Most sober living, it is recommended, because the reality is after 28 days of residential treatment, going home, statistically, your chances of staying sober are less than 3%.
Well, I understand,
So we always recommend longer term. Sober living, there's always a 90-day minimum commitment on the front end that they make, but we are looking for residents to complete nine months to a year, yeah.
So that's one of your, is that in the packet that you gave us? Some of the guidelines?
With this level of care, the individuals would be transitioned to sober living or
Yeah,
back
no,
home upon completion, but they only get 6 months, and that's capped. Main care will cover them for 6 months.
That's on your next level that you're looking to seek right now, but currently under Mars policies, level 3.
Yeah.
You're predicting to be at 9 months?
Yeah, some stay for 2 years, some stay for 7 months, they leave when they're ready to leave and they feel confident.
I understand about addiction, so I get it, I understand.
So it's very vague and I wish I could give you an answer, but it is so individual that I cannot.
I just was wondering what's your standard, what's your policy? So that, I think that's what, for me and maybe some other folks here, so we're trying to understand what your policies and guidelines. Within that, so.
A year is the average,
Okay. Okay.
Some people are further ahead than others, some
No,
people.
everybody grows at their own rate, I get that piece of it, but where we finding people, they're finding jobs, and within our community, I know you have also, they volunteer 20 hours a week, like I said, I did do some material lately, because I didn't have time to really kind of sit down and digest it all of it, but, I just trying to understand what your policies and guidelines are for somebody to stay at the house to receive X treatment.
I'm happy to go over that with you.
Yeah.
So everyone who comes into the house is required to work or volunteer for a minimum of 20 hours a week and come participate in all of the programming. It's mandatory. There's no sleeping during the day, not getting up and showing up. They need to be awake, out of beds made. What's the time on your schedule? 8?
Most people absolutely have to be out of bed by 10 a.m. and that generally is if you're working.
If you're working, it's 10.
That's the latest that they would be. As a treatment program, that changes 8 o'clock.
And how many meetings do they go to in a day or a week or?
Are you asking for the sober living or once it's licensed, cause they are.
I'm talking about where you're at right now.
Okay,
Right now, I don't,
So they are required no less than 4 house meetings per week, correct?
4 meetings for the week.
4 meetings for the week.
a 7-day work week or a 7-day week.
Yeah, and then we have 2 house meetings a week in the evening, when they get home from work and such. One of those is more directed towards individual issues and stuff. We do as much light treatment as possible, because we're not a treatment facility, so.
Right, so those 4 meetings, or is that just like an AA meeting or
Yeah,
what?
we have to go to AA meeting, so that can also include, you know, a Bible study can count as a meeting, any kind of, you know, support that they have for themselves is what we're aimed at. You know, I've been running sober houses a long time. I will tell you that it's one of the tightest places that there are out there, for sober living, and I've seen many that aren't. Level 3 is required, that it is very, very tight structured. So,
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, I mean, I just know traditionally some of them, you go for 90 days, you go for 30 days or 60 days, and you go away, and you don't have access to the community, you don't have access to other people and whatnot, so it's me understanding your policies with this here, because I have a better understanding of some of the other treatment centers, or what's been in the past, so I'm just trying to gauge what you guys are doing.
well, we're also able to, you know, sub out with level 3 MAR with, I think we might have talked about this, but other, you know, treatments that come in that provide IOPs for people in case management and getting services that they would need to also better themselves personally, with physicians and such, and IOPs and stuff outside of the house, so.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of things real quick. Thank you first and foremost for coming in and discussing everything, and thank you for sending the information that was requested. My only concerns that I've had, and I know you brought up the fact that Dawn had requested some things, and I know that the council has presented some additional questions. And the reason that we are presenting those additional questions are because we did receive all that information, either on April 11th or just this morning. And so as elected officials for this town, by the people of this town, we just want to make sure that we're actually reading through all of that documentation, because, I mean, there wouldn't be all that documentation if this was simple. Right. And so we are reading through it and making sure that all of those questions are asked. They might be very simple questions, they might be more complex questions. You'll probably get some more questions, additional questions from me, aside from the few that I had asked this morning with, I think I spoke with Josh on the phone regarding curfew. That was a question that I had come up regarding the 11 o'clock curfew. And that was just a concern, I think, from the evening policy. Yep. And so whether it goes to a certain time, and I understand that currently there wasn't anything in place till it goes to a certain time, but once you become certified, then there's certain stipulations, 9 a.m. to 6 or 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. But just something to consider. And we're just trying to seek more information because we do care about those residents. And I mean, we care about everybody, I think, in our town, and just want to make sure we make the most informed decision. I did also reach out to the licensing agent through the state of Maine, and they did say that once we submit this letter, that's it. So then after that, then the state of Maine takes over that licensing authority for you. We don't get a renewal as we do with cannabis or we do with alcohol every year. We don't get to review it.
We have, just so you know, we don't do this lightly. You know, the state has a lot of oversight on our program. Okay, so we can't just turn this over and no big deal. The state has a lot more oversight on what we're doing. What we have now with our level 3 MAR housing is not as structured by any means. There are, we have more issues in that environment without treatment in it, without the oversight. You will have much more GA than you won't have any GA once we go to treatment. It's a much safer environment for the community to have a treatment facility than our.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's varies in opinion, right? Because there's, if you do some of the history, that next level invites more, or it creates more havoc, having more of a treatment center as well. So there's two sides to that coin. you'll read about it, that level of treatment also brings, add more havoc as well.
I don't know where you'd find that information.
Well, I've read it, I've read both pieces, so I think if you go up, you know, that's where I'm stuck right now on a lot of that, so I'm just putting it plainly, and you can make that statement saying this is gonna be so much easier, so much better, and it's cleaner, which it may not be. The way you guys are operating right now may be just as cleaner, we're general assistants, six general assistants people, because you're promoting them to get a job, get out there and contribute, and then they won't need general assistants anymore, so it's not long-term. So, I mean, I think a big part of it is you guys are coming in and selling this to us saying, hey, because we're all kind of panicking about the general assistants, you know, going out the door, and what we're spending on that. I think we kind of want to slow down and say, you know, I'm concerned about this next level, of what it will bring, and what it more else could bring here to the town, and what it's gonna do. So that's my concern, so that's why I want to read about the policies and procedures before I go any further with stuff.
Where other locations have you licensed?
I licensed 1519 Forest Ave in Portland, Maine. I licensed 1582 Forest Ave in Portland, Maine. I licensed 251 Pleasant Ave in Portland, Maine, 85 Pleasant Ave in Portland, Maine, and 19 Pleasant Ave in Portland, Maine. I have 58 women's recovery beds and was awarded a capitalist fund for substance abuse treatment to fund opening those treatment beds. And as of most recently, I opened 56 Mosier Street with Maine Recovery Collective in South Portland.
Now, I also do have a comment on Zoom from Ben Skillings, I believe that's the owner, operator. So I just want to add that with licensure, the clientele will be virtually the same, and we will be able to have a dozen staff members instead of 2. Also, the fees will be paid by insurance, so there will be no need for general assistance applications, much more oversight and no financial burden to the town. Bruce, you had a comment?
Yes, where do they all eat? I mean, you have 45 people there, do you serve meals?
So yeah, the new licensing rule that came out on February 11th now requires us to provide 3 meals a day to be available to all residents. Now they can choose to opt out of those, which a lot of the residents do. They like to purchase and prepare their own meals. You know, at the other treatment houses that are licensed currently, I've only had one that wanted the prepared meals, and the rest kind of chose to do their own.
Of the other facilities that you've licensed, is this the largest one so far out of all of them?
Well, no, the first facility I licensed, as I said, it had 58 women's beds, but they were all kind of in the same small area, but they weren't in one single dwelling. So those houses that I just mentioned, all in Portland, that was all for the same women's agency.
This will be the largest in the state, if it is.
Yes, largest single dwelling, PNMI in the state for substance use.
So this will be the largest one?
So, okay, and if you would please directly answer, do you have a kitchen on site now? And do you provide 3 meals or 2 meals or 1 meal a day?
Yes, and not currently meals, no, that is part of licensing.
So you don't?
We do not provide meals in sober living. We will be providing meals once.
Okay, talking about now, okay, not what you might do in the future.
So I said no.
She said
Okay,
no.
I got it. The next thing is that, given my own personal experience with state and DHS, we're gonna, or I at least am gonna have to depend on you, okay, to do the work, because I'm not gonna start a wide-ranging conversation about the failures of DHS, but I think we need to depend on you to do the work and keep your word and not depend on DHS for any kind of enforcement.
Absolutely. I think that as operators, we take great pride in the services we provide and the opportunities we provide to a demographic that's been historically underserved.
Quick question, when is that deadline, just so we can have that?
Ben was looking up the exact date. I believe it's May 12th. But Ben is said he would look into, he might be able to type it if he's still on there.
Okay.
I do have one question about that real quick. Now, part of that application was including the letter from the town. How come you didn't come to the town before submitting the application? So that way the 60 days wouldn't have activated until you had a full application.
I believe the first time Ben met with the town was prior to the application being submitted, if I'm correct. But that's just
But that
typically the
wasn't anything
process.
about this accreditation. The first time he met with us, we weren't talking about this.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about this.
Okay.
First meeting was this last.
There was no mention of it.
Yeah.
So, it is typical as the licensing process goes, is that there is dialogue that happens between DHHS and the applicant that's looking to establish a new substance abuse agency. A lot of that is exchanging of documents. So this is a brand new policy. Like I said last time, since 2008, the substance abuse regulations hadn't changed. They changed in February, so it was very sudden, and we read through them and updated every single one of our policies. But as with my other entity, this is something that I was not aware of being a change until it was pointed out to me by DHHS. So it was kind of the last, I had to wait, 2 weeks for it with South Portland, so it was the last piece of the puzzle there as well. So,
Okay, so first off, I'm just gonna say, I appreciate everything that you have done so far. And then I do think that this is a much needed service. And then I'm gonna remind the council that we don't necessarily have much say over, a residential situation. So I do think it is in our best interest and the town's best interest to make sure that they are approved through this process and implemented. I do think that I know personally, I will make sure that, these policies that you've given us are adhered to. That, so there will be some level of accountability. Did you ever communicate the policies, like the incident reporting, to the chief of police? Did he get a copy of that? No,
no,
okay.
I didn't do
So,
that.
okay,
And if
so I would just
if
make
I
a
was asked to,
request.
I apologize.
No, you weren't, but I
Okay.
would request that you do,
Absolutely.
so he's aware, because there is a component with his
You got
department.
it.
Okay, perfect.
And we're happy to add him a notification by email to him for any incident reporting that occurs. We'll add that to the policy as well.
So just sitting here and listening, and thank you for taking on all the questions. Again, like this could be more. I'm really in favor of leaving you guys just as you sit today. Is watch you operate how you operate today and see what the outcome is and see what that happens in our community before I take it to another level. And that's really kind of where I'm weighing on this right now. As I think the chief has said, there's not been many incidences or any at all. I just would like to see what's gonna happen in our community with it and see how you guys conduct yourselves a little longer. It's only been since December. You're jumping from one level to the next. And I think the last time we asked for the, or came and presented the last one, it was kind of, we were sticking at this level for a while. So in my mind, I'd just like to see how it plays out a little bit. I don't disagree with Aaron as far as there's a need for it, because I know there's a need for it in a lot of communities across the United States, probably further, but that's where I'm sitting on it right now.
I do have some additional comments in the chat. There was a question, can we get it's a little dialogue between Ben and another resident, I believe. Can we get some clarification as to whether this is a sober house or a halfway house? What goes into the vetting process and what sort of things would disqualify someone from being a part of your program? Ben's response, sex offenders, recent violent crimes, and arsonists are immediately screened out. Others are taken on a case-by-case basis. And others are classified as people that don't have criminal backgrounds. And then it was asked, any clarification on the first question? I've heard it referenced as a sober house several times, sober or halfway. It's a sober house. A halfway house is a designation we're looking for being licensed.
Thank you.
I move that we table this item till Wednesday, correct? Yes.
Wait. Yeah, just a little bit of clarification. So, the meeting that was discussed on Wednesday, that's a planning board workshop.
Oh, okay.
One of the topics of discussion is going to be boarding house regulations. That's meant to be a broad discussion, not something that's focused on this particular location. So there'll be no action coming from that workshop. It's simply so that the planning board can workshop through an issue that they may want to address in the zoning ordinance.
I move that we table this item.
Second.
All right,
Are we waiting for a second, or did you move
no,
to?
right, got a second. So again, I just want to say thank you for coming in and answering these questions. And like I said, we'll probably still be asking questions. We just ask to help us stay knowledgeable as basically servants to our town. And hopefully we can increase that communication and create a better understanding of what you're looking to achieve. So we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor to table this item?
And we're tabling this item till when?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
That meet every 2 weeks.
So the next meeting will be on the 20th.
On the 20th.
Throw them out and they would have to redo their application.
All opposed?
I just would like to say, the last time we were here, you all agreed on it. And then, I don't know what
Pending
happened.
documentation that you requested.
Yeah, that you got. So I don't know why we're here again, and you know this, because you were.
We agreed.
You saw who
So
supported
we
it.
have the information for us. I wanted to read more. I know that.
I haven't even had a chance to read the information that was sent out last night, early this morning.
Well, the town office, I don't know who was in charge of the information, but we sent the information as requested.
At 3:45 in the morning.
No, that was not the information.
That was secondary information that was just asked within the past week. I think the information that was asked for was what are the services and what is the staffing? And that is 2 paragraphs in the body of the information. That other information there was a courtesy for you to have an understanding of what we do. This really is, I'm gonna just say it, as someone in long-term recovery who advocates for men and women needing addiction treatment, this is heartbreaking to see. It really is. It really shows the misunderstanding and the lack of interest in understanding what recovering addicts are capable of. They are some of the most upstanding members of the community. If you go to Portland, Maine, every business is looking to hire recovering addicts because they are honest, they show up because their life depends on it. So I sense a large amount of fear from this council as far as bringing these people into our community. You know, we can call it what it is, but I hope that you all take into consideration and take into your heart. Every single one of us is touched by addiction. Every single one of us has a family member, a neighbor, a cousin, brother who struggles with this. And that's who we're referring to here. We're not talking about criminals living under a bridge, carrying weapons. We're talking about our
But you saying that they are in our
family members,
community,
our
we are
neighbors.
welcoming them to our community. They are here and we are welcoming them in our community. So for you to say that.
But you're not, but you
No, what-
just
Just
you
because I
just
don't wanna go to the
stated
next
that-
level, just because I don't wanna go to the next level, I think you have to give us an opportunity, because you're labeling us.
The next level.
No,
is
I'm
a
not.
level higher.
Excuse me, we're not trying to have an argument. Thank you very much. We will try to become more informed. Appreciate it after reading the documentation you sent us. Yes, we did. So we had 6-4 and 1 opposed. Moving on to item 63, discussion and consideration of resolution 2024-003, committing to fund the balance of the town of Winthrop's radio communications upgrade that would not be funded by congressionally delegated spending.
So I previously briefed the council on the fact that we've submitted applications for federal earmarks for the radio communications upgrade to both of our US senators' offices and to our congressman's office. And we did that, the application asked you to identify a bucket of funding, and after speaking with Senator Collins' office, we identified the bucket of funding that we were applying for. We're estimating the cost of the radio communications upgrade at $2.1 million. And under the bucket that was identified, we could get up to $1.1 million or 55% of that cost. Well, Senator Collins' office started going through our application, and they called late last week and said, hey, we think we have a better idea about how to potentially fund your project. Would you consider funding it under this other program, which would provide $1.4 million as opposed to $1.1 million? So obviously, our response was absolutely, we provided a little bit more information. But one of the things that they asked of us was that you consider a resolution committing to the $650,000 or so that we would still have to fund if we were fully funded under this grant program. Chief Perlin and I are recommending that you approve this resolution that's before you tonight, because we think that threshold is fairly easily managed. We've already spent $77,000 on purchasing the land for the communications tower. We've got nearly $300,000 sitting in a reserve account. And you may recall we have about $888,000 still that you've not appropriated in the assigned fund balance for capital reserves. That, all that said, that does not preclude us from going to our partners in this project, the other communities that rely upon our dispatching services, and asking them to participate financially. That's still part of the plan. So that's the recommendation, that you guys approve this resolution. And if you do, first thing in the morning, I'm going to contact Senator Collins' office and give her a copy of this resolution. And hopefully this will move forward. One more encouraging thing about this is Senator Collins actually chairs the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. So if she gets behind a project, chances are it will be.
So one quick question.
So,
Go ahead.
we did this for the now stalled Winthrop, Welch's Point improvement project thing, and we actually agreed to bond the money if we could match the grant. And I don't see, and it was for good cause, just fell apart with COVID and everything else. I don't see why we couldn't agree to this. Like you said, we seem to have a lot of the cash on hand. Even if we ended up bonding, it's a win-win situation. I think we should just do this.
Can we require other towns to participate, to provide funding, correct?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. You have run it by, any of the grants, you know, the people that are providing these grants, that we can still, even though we're getting grant money for it, we can reach out to the other towns and.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's part of the application that you have in your packet, is they ask you to identify the funding sources outside of the grant. So all of the congressional offices know that we plan on approaching the 7 other communities that use our dispatching services for funding for this project.
But so these other communities have to pay.
Well, hopefully they will collaborate with us. We don't want to engage in arm twisting with them, but I think that they're going to be agreeable to that. I mean, we've already put them on notice that we will be asking them.
Well, I mean, why should
for funding.
Winthrop fund the entire thing here? If they're gonna be using it, we should not be funding.
It's a negotiation, so I'm not suggesting at all that we are going to put the entire bill. That is not my expectation at all, but it's a negotiation.
Those towns.
And there's a couple ways to do it, either rates to use the tower or upfront money and a lower rate to use it.
So we identified 3 different options in the grant application. One was, maybe those communities wanted to commit a lump sum of money if they had that on hand. The second would be that they pay a higher annual fee that would help to recoup the cost. And the third would be a combination of those 2 methods.
Yeah, the only question I have was, ARPA funds, have we designated all of our ARPA funds?
No, we could use ARPA funds as well.
I'd like to
I
use
would
that for
prefer,
the first.
I thought we.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves at this point. At this point, the question is, will you support the resolution in order to access these federal funds?
If we use our ARPA funds,
Yes,
That's a decision for another day.
correct.
okay, so yes. I mean, we have plenty of sources, funding sources.
So, can I make a motion? Make a motion to approve the commitment to fund the balance of the town of Winthrop's radio communications upgrade that would not be funded by congressionally delegated spending.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All are in favor?
You didn't get a chance to talk, Paul, but thanks. Anyways.
Yeah,
Tell them
so Shane, before we leave, I'll print out a clean copy of this for your signature.
Do you have to put the ARPA funds as on the app? No?
No, because that's where we're gonna get the money to finish it.
How much ARPA funds we have?
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200,000.
Yeah.
2,000,
Just right here.
Right, moving on to item 64, discussion and consideration of updating and amending chapter 3 of the Town of Winthrop Personnel Policy.
So you'll recall you've already approved updates to chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 3 is really more housekeeping items in the policy. Mainly it speaks to the classification of employees, so the updates are fairly minimal. With the exception of, we've added definitions both for exempt and non-exempt employees, and those comes directly from US Department of Labor definitions. So, you know, again, this is mainly housekeeping. The heavier lifts will come as we address the remaining chapters, which tackle issues such as compensation, conditions and benefits, disciplinary action, grievance procedures, and employee conduct. So this will be the last easy chapter we bring to you.
I move that we approve the updates and amendments to chapter 3 of the town Winthrop personnel policy.
I'll second.
Is there discussion?
Yeah, Anthony, I was reading this and I didn't have a chance to talk to you today about it, so I'm just trying to understand, the amendments you have are just from the red there on that page.
That's correct.
That you're trying to.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? All are in favor? Okay. Moving on to item 65, consideration of granting an easement across town-owned land that abuts Owens Drive.
I have a question. How much we're gonna make them pay for it?
I myself view this as a revenue, as a potential revenue.
Sorry, Roy, I just had to.
And we do have Mr. Bernard Weeman, Jr. up here as well, to answer any questions.
Just call him Junior.
Junior.
So first and foremost, I want to make it very clear, there's not any influence whatsoever from me in my position on the council. And it's not intended that way. What I'm looking, at the end of Owens Drive off Turkey Lane, the town owns the piece of property that is part of Glenside Cemetery. And right on the very, I guess, westerly edge of that property, at the beginning of what was formerly Soper Road, about 300 feet in, my property starts, and I own to the center of the road. This is an easement from the center of the road in 50 feet for utilities and egress for me to travel in and get to my property. And that's the basics of it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So Roy, you're saying that Owens Road has been discontinued? At that point, where the dotted lines are?
What has been discontinued?
The Owens Road used to be Soper Road.
Soper Road.
Soper, yeah.
Yeah. Owens Drive is a public way, and there's a cul-de-sac at the end of it. This right of way goes off the back of the cul-de-sac, up the former Soper Road, just to the edge of my property.
That's all you want is access to go up the road, right, Roy?
Yes.
It's currently there, yeah.
Cemetery,
You know,
not gonna interfere with cemetery?
Not at all.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm just gonna ask a question because it's there to be obvious, hopefully, but, from your other property off Old Lewis Road, was there like some challenge to try to access the property, or you just wanted two separate?
Distance.
Yeah, it's long.
It's a half mile from Old Wilson Road up in there.
He comes down to have a house right on that.
Perfect, I just wanna put it on the record.
The driving force of this is, for being now, is my daughter would like to put a residence up there.
We're all about tax.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve granting an easement to Bernard Weymouth Jr. as described in the easement deed.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All are in favor? All abstain?
Right.
Right, moving on to item,
Can't have nice things.
moving on to item 66, discussion of potential day of caring May 17th projects for town employees and volunteers.
Yeah, so one of the things that you'll find attached to this memo is a list of the school projects that students will be taking on. And some of them sort of overlap with the projects that are in your memo, such as North Cross Point landscaping and maintenance of the flower beds in the town's entryway and downtown. So I had a chance to talk with the Public Works Director today and the cemetery sexton last week. And they had a high level of interest in having other town employees help with cleaning up the cemeteries. There's quite a bit of detritus in the cemeteries right now. They're still trying to raise it. So for what it's worth, that was his hope and recommendation that we help clean the cemeteries. And also had contact with school officials just to say that, and they've assured us that if we want town employees to partner with the schools and some of the projects on their sheet, they're happy to have us do that as well.
So I don't have a timeline for this, but I will also be over at North Cross Point, but I would also like to be over at the cemetery as well. So as far as figuring out a timeline.
Well, my hope was once you folks make a decision as to what you'd like us to participate in, then we'll work on the logistics.
Yeah. I move that we approve day of caring for May 17th for projects for town employees and volunteers.
I'll let you, and you can come up with the,
I wasn't necessarily asking for action on this, but more of a discussion, so we could get a consensus as to you know, what you would like us to
I would
participate.
draw that.
Did you just tell us where to
Off the
show?
reservation.
Yeah.
Or if there's
You
other.
tell us.
I mean, you know, if you were to ask me, having talked to the town staff, I would say probably we can be best put to use on the cemeteries because they need it and it's fairly easy.
What is there, I know we had a discussion with the cemetery sexton last time. Are there any spots that are really impassable as far as I know the roadways, they said are in disrepair on a lot of, is there something that we could do there? And I'd be happy to donate the use of my tractor, and I'd probably even buy a couple loads of gravel for if that would be helpful during that day of caring.
That, I'd have to check with the sexton and the public works director on that one. I mean, I think what they were more thinking of is, I mean, there's just like branches and limbs just everywhere in the cemeteries right now.
I just didn't know by the sounds, it sounded like the roads were in pretty terrible shape.
Yeah.
I think I'd be in favor of that, listening to Bob that came up and talked to us last time with all the wind and storm damage.
Yeah.
And I know we're down some employees in public works. This would probably give them a good boost. And, you know, it's a nice early spring. I think, you know, that'd be a really good place to start for us to go up and clean up the cemeteries and at least help.
I have a chip or two.
So something we could do to recognize them for all of their hard work over the years and their volunteer.
Who are we speaking about?
The cemetery committee.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think that would be an appropriate time to acknowledge them.
Okay,
I agree. I mean, I think the cemeteries really need to work.
okay. Consider it done. So I'll work with the sexton and the public works director on some logistics. You know, this is our first year participating in this, but maybe next year we'll be a little ahead of the game and we'll have identifying t-shirts, pizza.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 67, consideration of approval of the minutes of April 1st, 2nd, April 22nd, and April 29th council meetings.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor? All right, moving on to item 28, consideration of recommendation from the appointments committee, tabled from April 22nd, 2024 meeting. Councilor Wayman.
The consideration, the recommendations I have no recommendations on the zoning board of appeals. I do have a recommendation for a planning board reappointment, Dawn Mattis.
All right, so item 68, you would like to recommend Don Matisse for the planning board reappointment?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion? Is there-
Second.
All right, all in favor? All in favor. Thank you. All right, other business, is there any public comment? Is Priscilla on?
She is.
Hi, yes, I can, there was somebody talking about a town fair earlier and I did not hear that, so I don't know what was said then. Do I need to know before I make my pitch?
I think we're talking about Day of Caring.
No, No, I'm talking at the beginning of the meeting. What I wanted to talk about is a proposal for a Winthrop Town and Family Fair on the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. This year it's August 31st, actually. And it would mimic what we did for the Sester Centennial celebration minus fireworks. And it would be an opportunity for all the departments in the community to share vehicles and talk with residents and, well, fair goers. We're not going to check that you're a resident if you come to the fair, but and we'll have vendors, food vendors and other
We're not gonna,
in town, etc.
we're not gonna.
This is
Someone's gonna
something-
come in.
This is something that Priscilla put together last year.
Yes.
Is she proposing putting it together?
So Priscilla, just to clarify, last year you put on the Sester Centennial for Winthrop, and this
Right.
year you're put on something similar over Labor Day weekend, is that correct?
Yes, without the fireworks, which is the big cost of it all. So of last year, and this year we don't want to move from the Norcross Point at all. We'll do the whole thing on Norcross Point. We won't have to clear the point for fireworks and all that stuff. We do hope that we'll have some waterfront activities, with like kayak races, stuff like that. There's a lot of ideas around. I'd be happy to share more when I put them together. But there was I want to make, there has not been a committee vote on this. It's been with, mostly being done with Jim King, myself, and Kathy Ward from the Grange so far. I've asked a lot of the groups in town to pitch in some way for this event. And most people are very open to it. The reception last year was very positive. I'm hoping that the town will pitch in somewhere about $1,000 because that would cover the cost of a couple of musicians we'd like to have. And I'm hoping Roy still knows where there's some classic cars to be displayed and stuff like that. So that's what I wanted to say. I had hoped to have something more official. I'm just not feeling very official these days. So don't have anything to hand you out in person.
We'd have to make sure there's not other events going on. We have to.
All right, Priscilla, yeah, so Aaron, did you want to say that?
Yeah, hi Priscilla, so I was just saying,
Hi,
Priscilla,
Aaron.
I would put in an application so we can get it on the agenda and make sure that we're not interfering with or maybe we could help, facilitate coordination with the concerts that,
Norcross Point.
yeah.
There's the concerts are already done by then. They've been finished. We are
Yeah.
hoping maybe to work out something maybe with one of the other musicians, the groups there. But
Yeah.
I'll put something together and we can look at it more officially. Norcross Point is already reserved. And I think I just said we'll be setting up at 1 and be opening at 2. That's all the detail they have.
And
So you're talking about an application. What are you suggesting?
An entertainment application for special entertainment from whatever group.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
Okay, but let me clarify something. I don't have a group to say that it's a group that's applying for it. I would be asking it that the town be I don't know how to go about lack of a group.
you would have to form a group, would be my guess, just make, an informal, you need like an LLC. Or either one of the Grange did it, or find someone that can help facilitate that, because then they probably insurance, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta
Yeah.
have all that stuff.
Okay.
Does anyone know when Liz's last concert is?
I do.
I think it's middle.
I'm having agreement
Too bad we can't put
to
that up.
support this. I have agreement from the chamber, from the Legion, and
Yeah. They do with the parades, right?
yeah,
All right,
a bunch of
so
different groups.
I'll follow up with you later, and then we can sit down with the Chamber of Commerce and get something drafted up.
Okay,
So we have a budget workshop a week from tonight. Do we want to include a line item in the budget for this item?
Not this time, not anymore. Talk
Okay.
about this.
All right, thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from
Thank you,
from the public? All right, we'll move to the town manager's report.
All right, so we talked earlier about some grant applications we've submitted to our congressional offices. Working with Chief Ferland, we've also submitted an application to Representative Golden's office for a COPS grant. COPS is an acronym, but it helps law enforcement acquire items that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And so we put in for a couple of pairs of thermal binoculars that the chief feels like would be helpful, particularly in locating people who may be lost in the woods and so forth. So Congressman Golden's office is congregating a whole bunch of these from different departments, and it's going to put in one application for all of us. So keep your fingers crossed on that. Last week, I engaged in some HR training, and one of the things that you folks will want to be aware of is back late last year, the legislature passed a law that created a paid family medical leave law. And it will cover most every employee in the state. And so what that means for us is that beginning on January the 1st, 2025, we have to begin remitting to the state 1% of our annual payroll. And so for us, January 1st is in the middle of the fiscal year. So essentially we'll do that for half of the fiscal year. Now, under the law, you can recoup half of that from the employees themselves. I'm suggesting that in this budget, we don't do that this first year because we're going to have to negotiate that as part of our collective bargaining agreements. And so it seems to me patently unfair to have a different set of rules for union employees versus non-union employees when it comes to this. But when you look at the budget, you'll see a line item for that. I just wanted to put that just on your radar as something that we'll be facing soon. The good news is we don't actually have to administer this program. The state is the one that's going to be administering the program. So we just turn the funds over to the state, and then employees, as they need paid family medical leave, apply directly to the state.
And the state actually comes up with the funds for the employees.
Well, the state collects the funds from employers, and then they use those funds to pay out the benefits.
If you're under 15, is it 15 employees, the employer does not have to pay?
There are some provisions. I don't know that that's one of, I think you're thinking of family medical leave, which is unpaid.
No,
family medical
this is
leave.
paid family medical leave.
Well-
They don't, certain employers, smaller employers do not have to pay for their employees.
Yeah, well, for us, it's neither here nor there. 'Cause
We're
well
bigger,
over.
we're well over that,
Yeah.
so.
So anyway, one of the things that was mentioned during this training session, there was a short discussion of collective bargaining. And one of the things, and we see this right now with our EMS union contract, is there's a bit of wage catch-up, because over the past 3 years, wages have escalated. And so those of us who are negotiating collective bargaining agreements right now are sort of having to play catch-up. But the good news is they say that they've seen a leveling off of wages since then. So hopefully the experience will sort of flatten out moving forward. There was a section on the handbooks, and so it was actually our employment attorney, Tara Sevich, who was leading that. And so we got some good advice on things that we need to make sure that we include in our handbooks. And then also there was a really informative session about due process. So all that was really helpful training for me last week. Speaking of union contracts, at that training, I got to talk with Matt about our EMS contract, and on that day, he was expecting his paralegal to turn over the draft of the EMS contract to him, so hopefully we'll have something that we can discuss with you guys on the 20th. Good, Mike's still here. We've been working on the heat pump situation, and so with the exception of the town office, all of the other facilities have been approved by Efficiency Maine. And so it's going to be a matter of us sort of figuring out how we're gonna come up with the upfront money that'll, of course, be repaid by the savings that we'll realize in the energy costs moving forward. But we have some ideas on that. Our mooring committee will have a meeting tomorrow night, and I think that's probably going to be the last meeting that is. Pardon me, I have a wicked cold. I think that's probably the last meeting that committee is gonna have. There's just one issue left to address. And then we have a public forum planned for a week from Thursday to get public input, let people ask questions, raise concerns, whatever the case might be. Again, if we hear something game-changing through that forum, then we may go back to the drawing board to address some things. But otherwise, we hope to be able to bring something to you guys in the month of June. So well ahead of schedule. Oh, I did send to you folks some, I think that was on Thursday, some EMS budget savings and revenue, maybe it was Friday. So we'll discuss that next Monday as well. So Chief Bostel has found some savings in the budget, he thinks, and collected a lot of interesting information regarding revenues on ambulances. And particularly an interesting model from the city of Gardner. And so I actually have a conversation scheduled on Wednesday with their city manager to talk through his model, because it might be something we want to adopt moving forward.
Don't they do similar to we do? They provide service to other communities?
That's correct, and so that's why I contacted them to get their rate structure. And so just in a nutshell, their rate structure, they take whatever their expenses are, subtract whatever their anticipated revenues are, whatever the balance of that is, they split it equally between a per capita fee and a usage fee based on the number of calls that they've answered over the last year. And then they also factor in some uncollectibles. And that's the portion I want to talk with their city manager about how they arrive at that. So anyway, I think it's a straightforward model that makes a lot of sense to me, but I want to learn more about it. But I think and Chief Bostel is going to participate with me in that discussion so that he can hear more about that. And so as a reminder, next Monday, 6 o'clock, we'll be having our next budget workshop here. And, and then I also sent to you folks some information about the Legislative Policy Committee. And,
Yes. I'd like to serve on that for MMA.
Oh, you would?
Yes, I would.
Okay, well, I was throwing my hat in the ring. Should we arm wrestle to see which one was?
You wanna throw your hat in the ring?
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine, but I'm going to the meetings because, I really feel like some of the things that were, some of the bills that I would have rather have had them stand up on, not so sure it happened. So
okay.
I've got some concerns, from, again, a lot of legislation that's over there impacts this town.
Okay, so I would defer to the councilwoman on this, because I don't know that they're gonna just let people attend who aren't members of the committee. And so if Councilwoman Capera wants to serve and you guys are agreeable to that, I'll fill out the paperwork.
Yes.
Okay?
Go get him.
Oh, yeah.
Read what you said.
And thus ends the town manager's report.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not afraid to speak up in the front of that group.
Yes, we know.
Gee. Oh, you were
All right,
back.
and at this time, we'll move into an executive session, 1 MRSA 4056A for personnel matters. And thank you very much to everyone in attendance.
Thank you.
Also,
We're gonna turn this off.
I make the motion.
Everything off.